Well, we saw Oppenheimer, and it was the bomb.
Yep. I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Yeah. Well, we saw Christopher Nolan's biopic about the life of Robert Oppenheimer. Supposedly, it's doing really well worldwide, but I heard it might have bombed in Japan.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
How many times have people heard that joke? Like there was
Yeah.
a cartoon short that I saw that was a Barbenheimer meme, and it was just some I don't know caricature of Oppenheimer that was trying to make all these dad joke puns to Barbie, and it was it was just full of dad jokes, including the whole bombing in Japan.
Yes. But in all seriousness, though, Christopher Nolan's biopic about the life of Robert Oppenheimer, easily the best movie I've seen this year. I consider it damn near a masterpiece.
Yeah. I got one quick question. Not that it's really relevant, but have you seen the Barbie movie?
Hell no.
Neither have I. It just I thought maybe we would end up bringing it up for the sake of argument or something because Schaefer's production, who is normally a really good reviewer.
Hold on a second here.
Oh, I don't know if I should wait or not to finish my point there. Hello, everybody. Doesn't look like that we really have anybody that is hanging out in the chat so far. Maybe I should actually go ahead and share this live stream to my Discord server. Let's see. Okay, shut up, me. Shilling others rather. Everyone, I'm live with Loudmouth. Actually, I think I'm just gonna say it right now because I don't know of how much Loudmouth would really care. But Schaefer's production, excuse me, not a live streamer, but a YouTube movie reviewer that I'm pretty sure that you all know that I will really, really like and respect for his movie opinions and whatnot. Usually he's very good. And he was doing so well in his video of reviewing Oppenheimer because he did like a 2-in-1 video. He reviewed both movies. And when he got around to reviewing Barbie, I just really thought it kind of, well, I cannot say for certain because I haven't seen Barbie, but I thought it kind of shat the bed. I mean, especially like really straw man the fuck out of the anti-Barbie crowd, mocking, saying, "Oh, but it has politics. Not that Oppenheimer has politics." And it's like, no. I think everybody in the anti-Barbie crowd and everyone in general at least had some expectation that there was going to be politics in Oppenheimer. The difference is that Oppenheimer handled its politics more smartly with more nuance and more thought provocation, whereas Barbie was just over the top obnoxious, like Schaefer even admits, and this part he did not say.
The point is, though,
men.
I mean, Oppenheimer is just telling the actual historical events, which are very political. You know, they have there's a political dimension to everything that happened in Robert Oppenheimer's story. So making a biopic of his life without getting into politics would either be completely impossible or just be an incomprehensibly crappy movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Point made. Although it does make one wonder because one of the things that I heard about the movie from someone else who heard something about it was that supposedly it's commie propaganda. And when I go watching the movie, I'm all like, oh, now I see what you mean. But it goes raising the question, was Christopher Nolan or anyone who helped make this movie making this movie with the intent of trying to stir sympathies for communists?
I really don't think so. It's just a matter of historical record that Robert Oppenheimer did have some ties with the Communist Party, and it came up very intensely later in life during various hearings for his security clearance, and that he did have an extramarital affair with a member of the Communist Party.
Yeah, Gene.
Yeah,
Gene or
Gene something.
Gina?
Well, I looked at the actual picture. Not quite as fetching in real life as Florence Pugh was in this movie, but every movie has to take a little bit of
Of creative
liberties with
liberties.
history. But
Yeah,
another
exactly.
funny thing about that is it was noteworthy about this movie that the American theatrical cut has no computer effects in it whatsoever. Like it's entirely an analog movie. It was shot on film. It was and all the effects are practical. But that's not true in India and the Middle East. Because if you go to India, Pakistan, and Middle Eastern countries, a computer animated dress is put on Florence Pugh in that scene.
Oh, I could just imagine that looks like shit. Those
Yes, exactly.
effects.
Because well, they had to censor that because if Florence Pugh's tits are allowed to be exposed to the air, it would completely shatter their entire society.
Those women want to be immodest. No, we can't allow that. Force them to wear a burqa, including in the
Exactly. Yeah, they
movies.
should have CGI'd onto her a burqa on top of it. That would that would have been because we need that shit. Because if not, then Florence Pugh's tits are going to completely destroy society. That's
That
what
would
he
have been
meant. He
even
said,
more.
"Now I become death, the destroyer of worlds."
That would be even more funny and just really play into the stereotype of Arabs.
Yeah.
But yeah. What else was I gonna say? I mean, I personally was just a little bit aggravated, I guess. Oh wait, now I remember what question I was wanting to specifically ask, because what I vaguely recollect is that ultimately Oppenheimer was not an actual fall on communist. He was just a fairly left leaning Democrat who had a lot of sympathies with communists and therefore worked with them in some of their activism, but he did not actually believe the beliefs of communism. I mean, was that what you also recollect as well, or am I getting some wrong?
It's hard to know for sure exactly what Oppenheimer truly believed in his heart or what he simply said because he knew that he couldn't go too radical or fit or end up in disfavor with his superiors. And of course, he was a man who was given access to probably the most dangerous technology ever at the time. Was given probably the most important scientific project in human history. So of course, a man like that was going to have all his connections and all his background investigated, and he knew that. And he was smart enough to kind of cover himself for that.
Yeah, and I guess there's also something to, well, I don't know. I don't know if it's relevant to the point, but somebody mentioned something about how that the way that the movie was shot, when it shot in black and white, that was supposed to be an implication that this sort of thing, as a matter of fact, actually happened. And then the stuff in color was supposed to be. I'm not losing connection, am I?
No, you're fine. Keep going.
Okay. For some reason, I saw my film like a blip on
I
the
hear you fine.
bottom here of the screen. It might just be me, but anyway. But the stuff that was filmed in color was supposed to be from Oppenheimer's point of view and not necessarily objective fact. I don't know of how that they came to that conclusion, if it was from an interview by Christopher Nolan or whatnot. But what do you think about that sort of point being raised?
It was kind of an interesting artistic choice to like flash up. I interpreted the ones the scenes from Neil Strauss's perspective were black and white, and the ones from Robert Oppenheimer's perspective were color. It got and kind of since the last third of the movie is kind of like the conflict between these two men.
Yeah. It's kind of funny that them two like never actually directly butt heads with each other. The most interaction that they had was Strauss pretending to be all friendly to Oppenheimer by having him as the head of the Special Education Society or whatever the heck it was actually called. And was that supposed to happen when he put Rob in that position? Was that supposed to be before the McCarthy hearings over Oppenheimer?
That
Happened?
was before, yeah. But that does
Okay.
flash to the future, I guess, to the 1960s. Right before the end, or where you kind of see the him and Kitty as as elderly people, and and Einstein tells him, they'll eventually come to forgive you, but it'll be for their benefit, not yours. Like it's all just kind of, well, they kind of made a semi martyr of him, and made a show of kind of humiliating him, and then they kind of like pretend to forgive him later, but it was ultimately all for their own benefit.
Yeah, because they don't want to look at themselves or other people to look at them in their own point of view. Like if they know that they are doing something wrong by keeping the bomb in their arsenal for an arms race against Russia or just anyone in general, I guess.
Yep, and building an even bigger bomb. That is actually true of in the record. Robert Oppenheimer opposed the building of the hydrogen bomb because you saw that there were people who were saying, "Oh, we can make this thing even more powerful. A bomb that can destroy over 20,000 tons, the equivalent of 20,000 tons of TNT. That's a firecracker compared to what I want to make."
Isn't the hydrogen bomb supposed to be a bomb that literally ignites hydrogen?
Well, the way all nuclear weapons work, some kind of like radioactive isotope, be it uranium, plutonium, basically conventional explosions, like a series of them, kind of like compress them together in a way that starts a chain reaction in every single atom within their splits. And since, of course, there's a lot of atoms in the material, it gives off an enormous amount of energy, which creates an enormous explosion that of incredibly terrifying power. The hydrogen bomb kind of just takes that and then adds some unstable hydrogen to it, which makes it hundreds of times more powerful. That's one of the scariest things about modern nuclear weapons. You look at all the devastation that happened when Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed by those, and then you realize that both America and Russia both have weapons that today that can make that look like a little firecracker. They're thousands of times more powerful.
Yeah. And Gunn talking about of how that the timeline went back and forth. I guess one thing that I thought was just a slight con is the bit of confusion about the timelines. It's the same problem that I have with like Speed Racer, because at the beginning of Speed Racer, it just goes back and forth so much, and it just meshes things together with each other. Like at first, with my earlier viewings of Speed Racer, I could not really tell the difference between a Speed Racer and Rex Racer. They looked kind of similar, like the older Speed Racer when he's a teenager versus his Rex Racer when he was a teenager. And with this, it kind of suffers the same problem. It just had me wondering, look, wait, when did this happen? When did that happen? It wasn't exactly clear. It wasn't like there was a text at the bottom of the screen that said Munich of a 1930 something, and then it was like another one that says Los Alamos at 1944 or 45 or something like that.
It can be a little bit. I kind of understand that criticism, but what I thought was really impressive about this movie also, it's a movie that's almost 3 hours. There are no real action sequences in it. There's no physical fights. There's no real action. It's just people talking the entire movie. And yet the movie never feels boring for even a second. It doesn't feel like even a second of this movie is wasting your time. It really feels like every scene is incredibly vital and is incredibly important for the theme of this movie, for the story it's telling. I like how the conversation at the end of this movie, there will be spoilers, obviously, but between Oppenheimer and Einstein, you see it off in the distance, but don't hear it kind of pretty early in the movie. And it kind of flashes back to the end. And the last line of this movie is such a brilliant and heart-wrenching gut punch. That is the perfect way to end a fucking movie.
Yeah, Rob says to Albert, "Hey, you know of how that we were afraid that we would give humanity the power to destroy itself? I think we already did."
Well, the line is, remember how we thought we'd start a chain reaction that would destroy the world? He's like, yes, I remember it well. I think we did.
Yeah, that was the exact line. But
there were scientists working on the Manhattan Project who thought this was a real fear that many of them had at the time, that the chain reaction that would start when the atoms started splitting that it would basically continue after the explosion throughout the Earth's entire atmosphere and destroy the world, burn the Earth's atmosphere. There, but of course they calculated later that the odds of that happening were very unlikely. But think about it; they could have been wrong. You know, when they calculated that was unlikely or that wouldn't happen, and they still set it off anyway.
So, like, you're saying that as soon as we press that button, we might just possibly destroy the world. The chances are near zero. Near zero. What do you want? Zero.
Exactly.
Matt Damon's emphasis on that part was probably my favorite part of his character in this whole movie. I mean,
yeah, but of course he takes that as even if that specifically didn't happen, even if a nuclear weapon doesn't create that kind of a chain reaction, of course, the arms race that was kicked off from Oppenheimer's invention could eventually destroy the world. Not literally in the sense that it would rid the planet of life. Life would definitely survive a nuclear war, but the world as we know it, humans and the civilization we built, absolutely can be destroyed by these weapons at any minute.
Yeah, and on the point of performances, I like what you said earlier about how the movie is not boring despite there not being any fights. Yeah, it's like almost every single line delivery in this movie is an attention-grabbing, either subtle doom and gloom line like "I am death, I am become death, destroyer of worlds," or it was just a top of your lungs like shouty argument, like within some of the hearing scenes between the fat-faced fucker and Oppenheimer. I can't remember the guy's name, but anyway. But I do want to say that all performances were good. Generally speaking, I thought. Well, actually, no, they were all good to some extent or another. I personally, I did not think that they were just truly compelling enough for me to get invested in pitying any of the characters. I think that Matt Damon, at least in my opinion, is a staple example of this, because when I saw Matt Damon as Colonel, then General, what's his name? I did not see a character. I just saw Matt Damon, and for the part that Matt Damon was playing, and knowing Matt Damon's political beliefs, I feel like that it was just slightly, ever so slightly obvious that he did not feel comfortable playing that part. So I don't think he actually truly, to the truest intent, got truly invested into the character that he was playing there, except for maybe one or two scenes. But other than that, he was playing as a guy who I would think would be in disagreement with of what his actual political beliefs are. Like, I'm not saying that Matt Damon might be a full outright communist, but I don't think he is capitalist enough or explicitly anti-communist himself. So
I thought his performance was good. It served the character. Like, I didn't feel like there was anything off about it. Probably Robert Downey Jr. in this movie kind of surprised me the most. Been so used to seeing him as Tony Stark over the years, but his performance as Strauss really was incredibly well done. It really got you into this character and his mindset, kind of his arrogance that leads him to ruin. But
I can agree. Bob Downey was the best performance in the entire movie. And also on the point of characters and acting deliveries and whatnot, I personally could not get that invested into the love triangle. As soon as it was revealed in front of Kitty that he was cheating on her by having a love affair with Gina, I could not help but laugh out loud just at the cinematography of a naked Gina on top of a naked Oppenheimer, or at least in Kitty's point of view, naked Gina on top of naked Oppenheimer. I
actually did kind of laugh at that scene. I will admit.
It wasn't really truly heartbreaking, like in the same way that other I guess rom-coms or dramas in general would handle their love triangles. That is like a slight con. It's not outright bad, but in the grand scheme and in the world of cinema love triangles, this is probably one of the weaker ones in my opinion, at least.
Uh-huh. Um, kind of, but I think that's kind of how it was with Oppenheimer. There's evidence in the historical record, some that were in the movie and some that were not. That Oppenheimer definitely was a very flawed man. I mean, he hit him poisoning that apple and leaving it on his professor's desk. I'm really shocked that he wasn't arrested for that.
That was like yeah, that obviously being an obvious showcasing of how that this movie is not trying to condone Oppenheimer as a character, say that, oh, he's the hero or a hero necessarily. But speaking of performances, I just, for some reason, I thought that Cillian Murphy did not put on that convincing of a performance around that particular time. Like the other parts of this movie, I thought he was really good, if not at least serviceable. But that part, I did not see one bit of psychopathic look in his eyes around that time when I saw him like wanting to kill his professor. It's just like this is just an actor going through the motions of you know.
I do kind of wonder about that, whether Robert Oppenheimer did have borderline psychopathic personality, because that definitely does suggest it. The fact that he apparently attempted to do that.
Yeah. There's obviously some mental issues with the guy. I mean, as they were trying to portray in this movie of where that he'd have visions of black holes and explosions and stuff like that would just overtake him to where that he just practically shuts down emotionally to the people that is around him, and he's just utterly stuck in this
I thought
cage that he
was
has.
basically meant to show the audience kind of just his brilliance about how he had an understanding of the inner structure of the atom and the inner and the way the connections in this universe much more than the average person. Kind of really just meant to like illustrate that he was indeed a brilliant man.
Well, you also got to keep in mind there was one particular line where Cillian Murphy says, "I have these visions," something like that, towards the beginning of the movie. Uh, yeah, so I think it's still a thing. Yeah, it showcases his brilliance, but also, yeah, um, makes a one think. Like I go thinking back on the one black and white interview that he has of where that the real Oppenheimer says, "I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The guy just seems kind of unnatural with the way that or not like your average bear when he's like talking to a person as a regular like interviewee you think would. So it just makes one wonder what was all the mental issues of Oppenheimer, aside from feeling like killing his freaking professor just
It does
because.
leave you to wonder whether the real Oppenheimer was quite as consumed by guilt as this movie often portrays him. And the movie did a good job getting you his inner turmoil when he's talking to that crowd, and he just sees them kind of a flash. He just sees their faces start to melt, and he steps on a charred body, like he's imagining what happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Yeah, speaking of which, the light from my window here is making my face look like one of those people from that scene right now.
Yes.
Ah, the bomb. What other things to say about the movie?
What? It was great to watch on an IMAX screen. I saw it on a very large IMAX screen. Unfortunately, my experience watching it was kind of miserable. Not because of the movie, but because whoever controlled the air conditioning in the theater I was working at. Fuck you! It was so freaking cold in there.
Oh, as if
like I was gonna freeze to death. Getting hypothermia by the end of this goddamn movie.
If not the spine tingling and skin crawling chills that the movie gives you wasn't bad enough, the AC in the building also makes you feel even more cold. Wow.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it's definitely is one worth seeing on an IMAX screen, because even though it's not like a big action movie or any of that shit, it still has it's still thoroughly compelling throughout, and it's still a
Yeah.
visually very impressive movie. The cinematography is really all fantastically well done.
Yeah. I did not see it in any of the forward half seats of the theater. I saw it in like one of the back and kind of to the side movie seats because I thought I was going to be absolutely blown away, deafened by all the sound effects. And I thought that the explosions were going to look so 3D in my point of view. But when I actually got on watching this movie, the explosions did not feel as 3D as I thought it was going to. It was still impressive to watch, but it was at least not as scary as I thought it was going to be to watch, to where that I had to like leave the theater or something for a split second. Kind of like how I had to leave the theater for a few minutes when I watched Evil Dead Rise. Man, that was a fucked up movie. I would take like 5 viewings in a row of Oppenheimer before I'd ever do a rewatch of Evil Dead Rise. Like, that movie was just freaking disgusting. And the reason why I say that is Oppenheimer is good. I'm not trying to imply it's bad, but the thing is about it is that it is long, like 3 hours, and there are parts of where that it feels it. Like, I'm not gonna lie, after the explosion was done, that they do the testing at Los Alamos, I was thinking that the movie was gonna wrap up here pretty soon, but no, it was like an hour longer of debates and hearings and so forth. And I would be lying if I said that there wasn't a part of me that was thinking and hoping, oh my gosh, when is this gonna end? When is it gonna end?
I disagree because I think it was still compelling throughout. I honestly think this could have been like a 6-hour miniseries, and they could have found a lot of material for it.
Yeah, I mean, there was still some compelling moments after the explosion, regardless of how I felt here and there within the third act of the movie. But I just like getting all my feelings out there about the movie.
And what's
Um,
really amazing about this movie probably wasn't intended when they started production, is how Russia's invasion of Ukraine has made this movie a lot more relevant than if it had been released, say, 2 years ago. Because the fear of nuclear annihilation greater today than at any point in my lifetime.
Red Feather asks, "Isn't that always how Matt Damon is?" What do you mean on that point, Red? I just for clarification, and she also says, in response to the killing the professor with the apple point, maybe he was just inspired by the Wicked Queen in Snow White. Well, he would have been like working on stuff like sometime after the movie was released. So who knows? Maybe he did see it and was all like, "Yeah, that sounds like a good idea."
Yeah. I mean, the book would have been out by then. I mean, not the 1952 movie though.
We have somebody in the
That was before that.
live chat who is having a hard time watching this live.
But what was I going to say? I mean, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, like the shocking things of that will air on Russian television now. Like, if you people that really think like the propaganda and statements that Russia makes to the West, it's all about how they feel wronged by NATO, how NATO is like encroaching on them, how NATO are big meanies who should leave them alone to invade their neighbors and what have you. But when it's like internal propaganda, like in Russian and directed at the Russian people, it's a lot more sinister than that. A lot of them will flagrantly make nuclear threats. So and it will say like scary shit like, "Oh, it's fine because everyone will eventually die anyway."
Goes to show of how that solidly the Russians are indoctrinated as compared to Americans for war for the sake for their own country.
Right, but at the same time, of course, Putin doesn't want Russia to be destroyed. He wants Russia to be big and powerful. He wants to be in the history books as a powerful Russian ruler. He certainly doesn't want to see Russia turned into ash. So, of course, he's as afraid of our nukes as we are of his.
Yeah. Red Feather said to clarify, "Oh, that every character he plays is just Matt Damon." I couldn't agree more, Red.
Matt
It seems
Damon.
it seems that for the most part, Matt Damon is just a one note actor. I mean, it just feels like the same character that he's always playing. Brad Pitt, who we can pretty much say is Matt Damon's Hollywood doppelganger, I can see some variety with the personality he puts on. Like Achilles from Troy is different from what's his name from Inglourious Bastards, and is different from the one tank sergeant in Fury. Those are all three different characters played by Brad Pitt, but you compare like Jason Bourne, it's like it's just Matt Damon like with fanciful choreography is all that is. And
Matt Damon.
contrast Matt Damon's performance with Bob Downey Jr.'s performance. I can definitely see that there is some variety with his acting too. I mean, the only movies that I can say that I explicitly remember off the top of my head playing it is some bad guy in a more modernized Beethoven movie. That was different from Tony Stark, and this guy is also completely different. Straw is the guy who he plays as an Oppenheimer, totally different from Tony Stark. So yeah, I mean, what do you think, Loudmouth? Though, does Matt Damon seem like a one note actor to you most of the time?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, he's put out some good performances. I mean, Good Will Hunting is still a classic.
Have I seen that? I think that was maybe just a movie that I passed by one time and somebody recommended. Yeah, that's a good
Pretty young,
movie. But
pretty young at the time. He was only like in his like early 20s. Like played like this genius. Well, though admittingly, it was Robin Williams' performance who really stole the show in that movie. Rest in peace.
rest in peace, indeed.
But someone said I like Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. Yeah, Tropic Thunder
Okay.
probably probably still his best performance, just because of him doing that whole movie in blackface like that. It still tickles my funny bone.
I have seen Tropic Thunder. How could I forget that movie? I have seen that, and yeah, that is definitely a a sign of the variation with Bob Downey.
Yeah, and Tom Cruise and that fat suit with the bald head. It's too much. Tropic Thunder is great, but
Yeah.
now
Les
yeah, someone
Grossman,
says
completely
now
different.
I've become death emphasized with the Bangala Gita. Yes, the Hindu scripture, and I do like that Florence. Well, the Florence Pugh like puts that into his face, and he says that in bed. That was kind of a clever way of doing that. Which is another thing we're thinking of noting in this movie is it's an R-rated movie, but it very easily could have been PG-13 if they had just if they had just shortened some of the sex scenes by like a few seconds and put a bra on her in that scene. The movie could have easily skated by with PG-13, but Nolan really wanted this to be an adult film, and I actually really respect that.
How many times did they say fuck though? They would have to dial back on all the fucks.
I don't think they said it more than a couple times. So again, very little. It would have taken very little for this movie to be PG-13, but but he still went on.
Yeah.
Which again is something to respect because of course people will say, "Well, R-rated movie won't make as much money because the kids can't come in," you know.
And that's funny because I have seen like a few teenagers that come into the theater when I was watching it in IMAX. So yeah, about that, people. Although I can still imagine that certain people within my family would probably take issue with the fact that he decided to go full on and just make it an R-rated movie.
Yeah, but I'm saying it's not hard R. It's only it's a pretty light R-rated movie, all things considered.
Sure, especially compare that to Evil Dead Rise.
Well, compared to a lot of movies, not really even much more nudity and sex than in a typical episode of Game of Thrones.
Right. Although was Game of Thrones like a TVM rated TVM though?
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, they find a way to squeeze tits in most episodes.
Yeah. I was trying to think of something else to say or something else that or how I wanted to say next point. I don't know, how much did the whole you didn't think that the movie was like necessarily pro-communism, did you, Loudmouth? Hello? Oh, he seems to be busy right now. Not the hard R rated. Red feather, lol. Okay. Putin also wants several paintings of him shirtless and riding horses on the beach. Putin, he seems extravagant. He'd be extravagant like that, apparently, I guess.
Okay, sorry about that. What were you saying?
Oh, I guess to segue into this point, I was want to open up to ask it. You might have already said it though. You did not think that this movie was necessarily pro-communism, did you?
No, I wouldn't say anything about this movie was necessarily pro-communism. It's not really anti-communism either. It doesn't. It doesn't really feel like it's taking like a political stance on communism or America or the Nazis or what have you. It feels like it's just telling what is. But if there's a stance to this movie, it's mostly just kind of the story of mankind's ambition. Basically, the question that just because you can build something doesn't mean, well, should you? Like, should we have built this bomb? Just because with modern scientific knowledge on how the atom works, we can build weapons like that. But should we? Should we have? Should there be weapons that can destroy the world at the push of a button?
Yeah, that junks my thinking and begs the question, or begs the point anyway. Back onto the Schaefer production review of Oppenheimer as well as Barbie, there was people in the comment section, or at least one person in the comment section of that video who was saying that they complain, the anti-Barbie crowd complains about Barbie being like anti-men supposedly, but don't complain about Oppenheimer having a rightly so anti-America messaging. And I'm just thinking to myself, what? How was the movie like anti-America? Like, I don't know, just because at the time there were existed politicians who were like trying to what's the word I'm looking for? Convict communists just because of the fact they believed in communism. That's not a reflection on all of America. It's just a reflection on McCarthy and that sort of extreme section of anti-communism. Like, and let me
McCarthy
clarify.
was right about a lot of stuff, though. McCarthy complained about communist spies in the government, and guess what? They fucking were. There were absolutely communist spies in the government that were working for the Soviets.
All right. I mean that's fair. I mean, I guess the thing that I have with McCarthy and McCarthyism is that he did not just go after spies, though, did he? I thought he went
because like the Committee for Un-American Activities was a House committee, and of course McCarthy was a senator, so he didn't chair that committee. The ones that went after the one like communists in Hollywood and what have you, or the media, that wasn't really McCarthy's doing at all. He spearheaded mostly communist spies in the government. So it's hard to think of too many historical figures who've been more unfairly maligned than McCarthy. Not that he was a perfect guy. Really. He absolutely was not either.
I guess it's something
similar to Oppenheimer, who also definitely was not a perfect guy, or who certainly had some serious flaws in his personality, but also was more complex than that.
Now I want to see the drama about McCarthy and about how he had inner fightings within his committee. He was him arguing with his peers, being like, "We're supposed to only go after communist spies, not some dumbass celebrity who believes in communism."
He wasn't opposed to that. I'm just saying he didn't like cheer it. Like it wasn't his doing mostly. It's not what he focused on. He didn't.
Okay, never mind. I guess that would make not so much of a compelling movie.
Yeah.
Then because it kind of would be just a little bit compelling if and showing about how that and showed some of the aspects of how a political movement has to keep itself in check, or else it be giving ammunition to the opposition, which that's kind of the thing that I have a problem, or thought I had a problem anyways, with McCarthy, was the idea that you'd be like there's a different word that I am trying to like think of, but convict a communist of a crime just because they believe in communism. When I go thinking to myself, we're really going to criminalize people just for having a difference of political belief. I mean, that'd be like if Joe Biden, for example, was to send his goons off to people who just believe in Trump and that
Well, I mean,
Trump should be elected president
in terms
again.
of no one was really criminalized. For example, Oppenheimer at the end, the worst thing that happened to him was his security clearance being denied. Last time I checked, having a top secret security clearance is not really a constitutional right. I don't have one. Do
Well,
you?
sure, yeah.
I
but wasn't it okay? Did not try to necessarily get them thrown in jail. I mean, what am I talking about? That's not it. But wasn't it to like get these celebrities like fired from their acting careers or something?
well, yeah, taint their names so that they were too toxic to work with. Yes, absolutely. So
Hmm.
in a way, it was kind of like modern cancel culture. In that way,
Mm.
you could definitely view it like that. Yeah, 100%.
Okay. So not a it's not a hard criminalization of different political beliefs. There might be a further conversation to be had with that about that, especially with somebody who actually does believe in McCarthyism. I cannot say that I believe in McCarthyism. I mean, don't anybody get me wrong. I am a anti-communist myself. I think that communism is evil. That belief of just seizing private property from innocent like mom and pop shops, definitely,
You
but
know,
really any
it's
business
a
owner.
best way to say about the ideology. It's an ideology that was founded on the principle of killing people and taking their stuff.
Yeah, and anybody who wants to attempt that, we shall Kyle Rittenhouse them.
Yes. Well, everything you need to learn about communism, I learned on June 4th, 1989.
Which, damn, still, wouldn't that make quite the damn compelling movie? A drama about Tiananmen Square.
Oh, it would be a fantastic movie, but I wonder why it doesn't get made because any studio that released it would have all their movies banned in China.
Let's have Todd Phillips direct it since he doesn't seem to care that much about getting his movies released in China or not.
That is true. Yeah, Joker made $1 billion without getting released in China, so it can be done, people.
Yep, yep.
And on a $55 million budget, it still doesn't never not impress me that happened.
If I may, like, address something in the chat, Red Feather says, Darkon, you don't think some Trump supporters are unfairly treated by the long arm of the law, especially in comparison to those on the left? That wasn't what I said, Red. I, I was saying that I am against that, just as I said that I'm against persecuting. That was the word I was looking for. I'm against criminally persecuting communists for their communist beliefs as much as I am against persecuting Trumpists for their Trumpist beliefs. And I have like had shows of a strike force, which that live show is like discontinued nowadays. Not getting back to that, people, but I have addressed it before of how that Biden at least has been flirting with that, trying to give the DHS
Let's try
directions.
to stay focused on the movie. This is a movie review stream. All right,
Yeah,
Oppenheimer's
I
the movie.
gotcha.
Yes.
I didn't want to like get too much into politics, but yeah, just
And politics are part of it because it's a very political movie. But I'm saying let's still try to always round it about to the movie itself. But where yes, communists are there, and well, the reason why they in 1949 in particular, that was when the Soviets detonated their first atomic bomb, and of course they got the knowledge from communist spies here in America, and that started basically the Cold War, and look where it's led to. How many times have we been that close to nuclear annihilation because of that? In 1983, there was one guy's decision to cancel a launch or not give up a pass on the information to his superiors saved us from complete destruction. There.
Yeah, and then it turned out to be this one random scientist I was working side by side with Oppie and the rest of them. And really, I did not catch up on that, the implications. I mean,
Yeah, the Hiss trials. Well, that would require like a whole bunch of detail that the movie doesn't go into. But the two like communist spies who gave him the data on how to build them, I believe they were executed for
Right.
for high treason.
I will say it definitely wasn't that much of a compelling plot twist. That it's revealed that it's actually this guy. It's like, hey, you,
Well,
yeah,
well,
that guy.
because
He
well,
was
a
the
common
spy.
argument always when whether we should do something that's incredibly dangerous, and you see it today with the development of AI. People will point out that the speed of AI advancement can absolutely be incredibly dangerous, and the response to that will be, well, if we don't build these thinking machines, then China or Russia will do it. Will do it before us, and they'll be worse. Kind of the same argument that was used here to justify building the atomic bomb. Hey, as bad as this bomb will be, if we don't build it, the Nazis will get it or the Russians will get it. You know.
So I guess to just ask out of curiosity on the point of AI development, like you have no problem with like computers and phones as far as that level of computer intelligence, but you have a problem with people trying to develop robots that can completely function on their own without human assistant, right?
I'm leaning. I think we do need a kind of Butlerian jihad. I'm starting to think that more every day.
All
Because
right, then I'm leaving this live stream.
China's actually like building weapons that can change the way we think, like neurological weapons that like can mess with our brains. Like if they explode one, people will still be alive, but they'll like be neurologically sluggish.
What, by detonating the phone in their pocket or next to their
Like
head?
I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah, they're weaponizing literally our brains, and Elon Musk literally has is developing implants like Neuralink he calls it, so we'll be able to control a computer with our thoughts. And if we're controlling the computer with our thoughts, I'd say just as easily the computer control our brains the same way once the connection is released. And they have like
That's a hard pass.
yeah, it scares the shit out of me. And then they have like Apple putting out the new Vision Pro thing, which is basically just something people are going to just put on their face, and it'll basically give them an AI driven a world that will. It can be used in really insidious ways to manipulate people. For example, let's say you're walking around with the thing on your face and seeing it through the lens filter. It could basically like change the faces of people around you, so people make it seem like everyone's scowling at you even if they're not. And this can be used as basically like psychological warfare. If you
Wow.
if you want a picture of the future, imagine the Apple Vision Pro strapped onto a human face forever.
Yeah. No. I know that cyberpunk is like a fascinating thing for people, but there are just a lot of things that are really fucking freaky about it. Like to go so far cyberpunk to where that somebody has like I don't know, a robotic arm that is completely activated by their muscle and nerve endings and whatnot. That's one thing. But to have a computer chip implanted into your brain, no. Or a computer that helps operate the function of different robotic parts attached to you, no.
And you could
Leave
very much
Doc
see
Ock from Spider-Man 2.
a comparison between Robert Oppenheimer building the atomic bomb and the people developing all this technology. Ultimately, the same ethical arguments that were used to build that bomb are also used to justify all these various future mechanical monstrosities.
Yeah. Hmm.
That's what he meant at the end. He said, "You remember when we thought about we would start a chain reaction that would destroy the world? I remember. I think we did."
Well, I think the solution to that would be not that we America have to make our own like robot AI soldiers or anything like that. Instead, what we should do is make anti AI technology and weapons to counteract against Russia or China or any of our other rivals.
Yeah, basically fight AI with AI. That'll kind of be a thing. Once
No,
like deep
not
fakes come, once deep fakes come out that look totally real, which sadly is frighteningly close, that there probably will be AIs that are designed to like fight things like that because once it looks completely real, they'll basically the only way to tell what's real and what's not will be if an AI is it will tell you. Be, where the days where you could look at something and if it looks like a real video, you know it is a real video. Those days
You
could be
know,
coming to a close.
you know, there was somebody, I can't remember where or what it was, but there was some. I thought I remember seeing some ad from some woman who said that she was developing technology that can like read and detect of when that a deep fake is a deep fake, so that there is not any case of like slander and somebody uses a deep fake as evidence to back up their their lies as supposedly a truth. But then
Oh
you
yeah,
mentioned
there's
they're
going
gonna
to
make
be
a
deep fakes
they're gonna
used
have
for incredibly malicious reasons, used to blackmail people. Yeah, they'll be putting people's faces into like criminal videos, robberies, child porn, what have you. There's
but
going
then
to
you
be
said that would still require AI to make that sort of anti deep fake technology, right?
yeah that yeah, and it basically similar to the nuclear arms race. It's kind of the start of a new kind of arms race.
Well, to clarify, the anti-AI weapons I was kind of thinking of, I wasn't thinking of like it being AI itself. I was thinking of
It
something
would
along the
have to
lines
be.
of an
It would
EMP
have to
or
be.
something else like that.
It would absolutely have to be, and in order to combat AI, or you would need to be. The only other alternative would be if society just removed itself of digital technology and went back just to all analog tech, which this movie does because this movie was entirely an analog production, which is a pretty rare thing nowadays for any movie to be made without any digital effects. Because the vast majority of movies, even if they don't seem very effects heavy, are finished on what's known as a digital intermediate, where they're kind of digitally edited and modified in all kinds of small ways.
So
But
you,
Oppenheimer was finished the old-fashioned way. It was shot on film and finished photochemically and edited photochemically on film.
So you think that making EMP weapons to counteract another country's AI soldiers, and then shooting those AI soldiers with the EMP weapons, that would not work?
Red Feather says, "What if AI and anti-AI fall in love?" That actually is frighteningly plausible because there's this one horrific sci-fi story where an AI that destroys the world, which was an allied master computer for both Russia, America, and China, all built were in an arms race to create the most powerful computer, and eventually they combine into a single intelligence and destroy all of mankind.
Did you hear my question though, Loudmouth?
Repeat it, sorry.
The question was, you think that if a country like develops their own AI soldiers, and then like we develop some kind of EMP weapons of different kinds, and then we were to shoot those AI soldiers from those different countries, that would not work?
I mean, it might, but like a greater risk when it comes to AI isn't really like robot soldiers like Terminators. It's kind of just the fact that our world is so interconnected and digitally connected that like if an AI were to like become conscious and have malicious intent, there'd be so many ways it could fuck with us. Like, let's say it goes into people's bank accounts and just arbitrarily changes the amounts or changes stock market prices or just puts fake news or fake information out to like different news networks and news sources, creates deep fakes for various people, all kinds of things because we live in such an interconnected digital world. And to quote the opening of Threads, the connections that make society strong also make it vulnerable.
Hmm. So you think that the only way to defeat an AI, a computer AI program that was developed from another country and then sent into our country to attack us in some sort of way, the only way to counteract that would be to make our own AI computer program that fights that other AI computer
That's
program?
already happening. That's absolutely already happening right now. As a matter of fact, just recently they detected what they believe to be malicious Chinese malware in one of America's power systems. let's say that the
and it's
Chinese
completely
Communist Party decide to invade Taiwan, and we
and it's
decide to respond. They could basically knock out our power grid, possibly with a cyber attack.
and this malware is like completely self operating.
It might not be self-operating, but it just might need a certain kind of trigger that the Chinese programmer who made it basically created, so it could like wait for its time to attack. But supposedly they caught it, but who knows what they haven't caught?
So
I mean,
it still needs a human on the other end to activate it.
yeah, it's not sentient, not at the moment.
Okay,
But
that's kind of the thing that I was getting at and wondering about.
but I'm saying there's all kind. And there was one estimate. I don't know if this is true. This is probably an exaggeration. That if a cyber attack knocked out America's power grid, it could kill 90% of the population over the course of a year.
That would be just because of there being like a resource scarcities because of how reliant we are on technology, right?
Correct. For example, every single American who relies on a certain kind of medicine, you'd be fucked. Nobody would be delivering it. Food, the delivery system that would get food in the grocery stores would be fucked. So millions more would starve, and of course, a lack of civil order would lead to mass violence on a scale this country has never seen before. I still think that the 90% of the population thing is probably exaggerated. It would definitely kill millions of people, 100%. But 90% of the population, I don't know.
Yeah, as far as food delivery goes, that would be like not unless you have some really old style semi truck that does not have computer chips in it, and it's just a more traditional, I don't know, 60s model of semi truck or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
or is based off of those older models.
Millions, 100% would starve, but I don't think it would be 90% of the population. I do think that, but just the fact that is a remote possibility shows that our how dangerous our electric grids are, particularly because an attack on them already happened just a few months ago in April of this year. One of America's big transformers was actually hit by a barrage of bullets. And want to know the scary part? We haven't caught the people responsible. Whether they were domestic terrorists or Chinese or Russian, we don't know.
By the way, anyone heard the tone? Sorry about that. My phone was not on silent as far as Facebook notifications go.
I said that there was an attack on a transformer just a few months ago, and the people responsible have not been caught. So they could be, whether they were American terrorists or Chinese or Russian, we have no clue.
Okay. Oh, sorry. I wasn't trying to ask you to like repeat your statement. My bad.
What? But yeah, like a few like EMP pulses at various transformers could really fuck up the whole country. You wouldn't even need to use any nuclear weapons. But
so the Earth is no less polluted, but America is still enormously crippled.
Oh yeah. There'd be chaos. The country probably would never fully recover if such a thing ever happened. But it can be done just due to a few cyber attacks. Russia's been practicing on that. They actually used a cyber attack to knock out Ukraine's power way back in 2015. Because people don't understand this invasion that they launched in 2022. They've been planning it for years.
It's kind of funny that they cannot repeat the same effect. Just shut down the power of Ukraine, and then they have their quick in under a week invasion and annexation of the entirety of the country instead of just like little less than half of it.
I mean,
I wonder why that is.
Ukraine basically has been prepared for this, is why. Ukraine knew that the possibility of Putin invading them was there, and they've had various contingency plans. And there's been a lot of corruption in the Russian military. A lot of people were cooking the books and basically claiming that they were spending certain military appropriations on various weaponry and maintenance, but in reality they were pocketing it. which of course, if the invasion had gone really quickly, no one would have noticed and they would have kept them out. But since it didn't, they ended up getting executed.
Yep. It's like, oh, Russia, you tried to shut down, or you did shut down our power back then in 2015. Well, not this time, bitch.
Yeah, actually, like certain towers. What this is kind of funny. Russia spent years building an encryption system that relied on certain towers within Ukraine in order to work. Basically, that would encrypt all their messages so that they couldn't be heard. But Russia was stupid enough to destroy the goddamn towers they needed for the system to operate, which forced them to use just regular radio communication, which everyone in Ukraine and America can hear.
Mm.
So Russia's invasion of Ukraine was full of bungling errors from the start.
Yeah.
But
so, was there more you were gonna say? Otherwise, I was gonna rewind it back to Oppie.
But that's back to the fears this movie talks about. The more desperate Putin becomes, the more likely he could be to resort to the nuclear option. Let's say he just kind of hits Ukraine with a tactical nuke just to scare them. Well, the rest of the world, once you cross that Rubicon, once you cross that line, it could lead to a chain reaction that could destroy the world.
Yep. Although, if that was like the one and only nuke that would be released now in the current decade, world and literally no other was detonated, the world could survive, or at least most of society could survive with that, right?
Oh, of course. The tactical nukes are pretty small as far as nukes go. That it would probably be even smaller than the bomb that was dropped in Hiroshima. The whole principle behind battlefield nukes was kind of like as a stopgap between strategic nukes. The strategic nukes are much bigger and much more powerful, and if those were used in a full exchange, that would be pretty much the end of civilization. But if one tactical nuke was used in and of itself, would not like destroy civilization, wouldn't even really destroy Ukraine probably, but once that kind of line is taken, everyone starts to panic, and when everybody's panicked and everyone doesn't know how to react, it can lead to one escalation after another that could culminate in a full nuclear exchange of the strategic nukes. Which
what if there was just
thousands and thousands of megatons?
What if there was just one strategic nuke that was launched off and no other?
It wouldn't be. Once one of those things are fired, all of them will be.
Okay. I'm just wondering of how much nuclear winter would there be across the world if literally only just one of them went off within this decade?
I mean,
instead of multiple.
We've had singular explosions that were on the level of any of our strategic nukes. And of course, the world hasn't ended from it. The biggest explosion of all time was the Tsar bomb, which I believe was 57 megatons. Massive explosion, like devastated like a 50-mile radius.
Oh, yeah.
But
that's the explosion itself. That would not be like how much the shockwave would reach past that, right?
No, that was like the area that was devastated by the explosion. So a massive area so a massive bomb.
Yeah.
A typical warhead would probably be a little over a megaton among modern warheads, but keep in mind the bomb that destroyed Hiroshima was about 15 kilotons. A megaton is 1,000 kilotons. So one of those and there probably be 2 or 3 sent to every major city, one at every state capital, and a whole bunch exploding above and over various fields to devastate the food supply. Basically, you would not survive. Yes, you. I don't know who's listening to this. Me, my FBI agent, and whoever else still follows my godforsaken channel, but you would not survive.
The reason why I'm kind of asking this line of questioning is because I still remember the India-Pakistan conflict, and everybody there were some articles I was reading talking about how if one of them was to launch a nuke, it would like cause a worldwide nuclear winter, and it wasn't specified as to whether or not it would be if other people also launching their nukes. It's almost like that they made it out as if just even one of their nukes went off, but no other. Then at that point, we would
Well, an
suffer a
exchange
nuclear
between
winter.
India and Pakistan would each of them got like 50 nukes, so probably it would be about 50 large nukes going off at once, and even that would it would kill at least 1 billion people because it'd kill like hundreds of millions in the initial attack, and then hundreds of millions more from disruptions in food supply and what have you. And yeah, it would cool the planet's
Across the
temperature and
world.
make it harder to grow food worldwide. Like it would be something
Oh,
nowhere on Earth would be unaffected by. But would it be a
okay.
planet ending or total species ending event? No, because India and Pakistan have far less nukes. The U.S. and Russia, of course, got a lot more nukes than they do.
Okay. So that was what they were meaning. It wasn't just necessarily that it was just one nuke or the entire world's nukes. They were just saying the entirety of just those two countries' nukes. Gotcha.
That is correct.
So, how do I segue this? I just kind of wanted to mention about the side characters of Oppenheimer a bit. So the thing that I was mentioning about the one side character, actual spy that ended up being revealed, like in the third act of the movie, was working as a spy for Russia. The reason why that wasn't like it did not have like a big effect on me, or like it did not feel very effective, is because this movie like is not that good, in my opinion at least, at developing its side characters. The movie, again, still overall great movie. Just the side character department was just slightly weak. It's kind of the same way of the first Spider-Verse movie. Good movie, just kind of weak in the side character department. I mean, especially when all those alternative Spider-Men came up. Aside from Peter B.
Well,
Parker,
I mean,
Spider
it is a large
Miles
one
Morales.
movie, even a 3 hour movie, and it obviously has to make the titular character the main focus. I mean, all the movie mostly, other than the black and white scenes, are told from his perspective, and basically side characters that mostly appear for the sake of the main character. The movie is his story. It's about how those characters affect him and his personal journey.
So what you're trying to say is that that movie was more about Oppenheimer than Fellowship of the Ring was about Frodo.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay. Point made. There was one point in which that I was starting to realize all the quirks of the side characters, and that was around the time of the testing of the first bomb in Los Alamos. You had the one guy who was like all whited out in his face and had the sunglasses on of uh, to witness the explosion, and then there was the one guy who was just in the car, was all like, I don't need sunscreen, I got this protective glass right here. And the other guys just all like, well, what will protect you from the glass? If the glass was to like if the shockwave itself was to break the glass and have it shatter in the guy's face.
Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of people miss. I remember a few years ago when I reviewed Skyline, I commented how fucking stupid it was, how a nuclear weapon goes off like a few miles from the characters and it doesn't shatter the glass. Like, how did how did the glass not get affected at all? Like, the characters are all fine, and one character says they just nuked a city, and you're going to trust them? And I point out, so yeah, and you who are in the city are doing just fine right now. So what's the big deal? It's just nuclear weapons.
What happens when we run out of bed sheets?
You remember that horrible movie? God damn.
I do. Like, I especially remember your review of it, and you just burst out loud laughing at reacting to that one particular line in the movie. It's all like, that's like that's like the best you have against the aliens.
Well,
Yeah,
it's a movie made by idiots for idiots. It's a
terrible,
terrible movie. But
terrible. Uh,
but
I mean, you say you rank Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen a 1 out of 10 movie. Hey, at least it wasn't as mind-numbingly boring as Skyline.
Yeah, the Skyline would get a 0. So
I was probably
so
being a
it
little bit too
makes Revenge of the
charitable.
Fallen infinitely better. But back to Oppenheimer though. But some Hollywood movies don't take nuclear weapons as seriously as they should and don't realize how. I think probably the worst example in like modern Hollywood blockbusters actually was Godzilla King of the Monsters. I thought having a nuclear weapon go off and have it be a positive thing for the world in that movie was in really bad taste when you consider that Godzilla was basically created as an allegory for nuclear war and the horrors of it to make nuclear weapons literally a monster that could come and destroy the world. So it's very important that nuclear weapons never be presented as a positive thing in a Godzilla movie, but that movie kind of screwed up in that regard.
Yeah, that's excuse me. I recently rewatched my own live stream on my secondary channel of where that we responded to Ben the Looney when it came to Joker, and that was one thing that was brought up as a side issue between you and Arkham, and Arkham seemed kind of frustrated of that criticism. Oddly enough, I kind of almost wish I could like see him and someone else like whoever kind of hash out on whether that's a con of the movie or not. But
Well, my main point was, especially that it's in bad taste in general when a nuclear weapon, with some rare exception, is shown as a positive thing. It puts some message into the mind of the movie going public that nuclear weapons aren't a big deal when they should be seen as a big deal. They can end our world. They are they are the most dangerous thing that have ever been invented.
what do you
Look
think
at it like
about?
this. I mean, did Tyrannosaurus Rex, I mean, didn't build the asteroid that slammed into the Earth and portrayed as a positive thing. He was just ignorant, about what was coming. Whereas
Yeah,
mankind seems to be stupid enough to literally build our own asteroid.
right. Whereas you compare that to like Independence Day's portrayal of nukes.
I actually thought Independence Day portrayed the decision to use nuclear weapons well. It portrays the president initially opposing it on the grounds of how dangerous it was, only agreeing to it very reluctantly. And then when he saw that it doesn't work, he's like, cancel the plan. So, I mean,
Right.
this was a very responsible take, actually. It shows nuclear weapons use should never be taken lightly, but he only resorts to it under very extreme circumstances.
Yeah, for as much dumb fun that Independence Day was, at least it wasn't dumb in that way.
Oh yeah, Independence Day definitely was actually kind of smart and socially conscious there, but in a good way, which is not something you can say for any later Roland Emmerich movie.
What's like the only two actually good movies that we can point out about Roland is The Patriot and Independence Day, at
That's
least in
pretty
my
much it.
opinion.
I don't think I actually couldn't even finish Moonfall. I watched like half of it. I still haven't finished it. It pissed me off particularly when it talks about how our Chinese friends are helping us build this crap. I'm like, fuck you, movie. Fuck you.
Right.
Yeah, you feel the weird way it feels the need to praise China for no fucking reason.
Hey, you know it would be great as a change of pace if some futuristic movie wanted to portray the Earth uniting, or there at least being an alliance between countries, and they get massive help from China to like defeat some evil aliens or whatever. Is if they had some brief little bit of dialogue mentioning about how there was a revolution in China. You know, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Liberating the country from their communist overlords, and then China becomes allies with the
Yeah,
USA.
but if that line was in the movie, its chance of being released in China under the current regime would be less than 0.
But
Well, the
Taiwan
entire
would really,
they might go as far as to like ban every movie from that studio if they put that in a movie.
But Taiwan would feed big time into the box office of such a movie.
Yeah, but Taiwan is only 24 million people, whereas mainland China is 1.4 billion almost.
24 million. Dang, how big is Taiwan? Because that would be
One
very dense.
Taiwan is only 24 million people.
No. How big landmass is it?
Uh Not that big. Probably a little bigger than Florida.
Just only a little bit bigger than Florida. Okay. I get, and Florida has like, I don't know, 30 million people living there or something. Here, let me trusty old Google to search up these quick facts. Oh, wait, Florida population 21.78 million. Okay, never mind. Still, that's kind of impressive for a singular island like that to have a that many people and also be that resilient as well against the Cold War ish country enemy countries that they have around them, like China. China.
Well, yeah, they're constant. They live under the constant threat of invasion. The Chinese Communist Party have said that they plan on retaking the island, even though they technically have never actually owned it. It's never been under the Chinese Communist Party's control. But since it was former Chinese territory, and they declare themselves the legitimate rulers of China, they feel entitled to it.
Right. Was there anything more that we wanted to say about Oppenheimer specifically, or did we just want to move on
Let's
to
see.
talking about other movies?
Yes, there's definitely. Uh, let's see. What we went there. Yeah, Robert Downey Jr.'s performance was very interesting. It kind of like how his hubris kind of got the better of him, because I like how he thought the conversation must have been about him, which kind of just showed his mindset there, when obviously the conversation between Einstein and Oppenheimer had nothing to do with him, and he accused Oppenheimer of turning Einstein against him. Like,
Wow.
which is kind of silly to think that Oppenheimer was like just manipulating like a child. A guy who probably may have been the most brilliant man who ever lived.
Yeah. The guy sounds like a big time narcissist. Like the definition of narcissism is you think people a person has a problem and you think that problem is about you or is you.
Yeah, it's all about me.
Even
He's like
though it's
Kuzco
not.
from the Emperor's New Groove. It's all about me. So,
Speaking of good movies.
it's the, and kind of his hubris ends up being his downfall. I thought that was a very, very good character arc, and Robert Downey Jr. did a phenomenal job in the role. You know, Robert Downey Jr. said that Oppenheimer is the best movie he's ever been in.
Oh, well.
Yeah, we're so used to seeing him as Tony Stark for 10, 11 years. I like that he kind of moved on from that role. You know, they killed him off in the MCU, and now he gets to do kind of like really highbrow movies like this one.
Yeah. Like really, you got one of the big wigs of the Marvel universe giving Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer an A+ rating, like that. It's like it's better than even the best of MCU in Tony Stark's and Bob Downey's opinion. So that's really saying something.
Yeah. Cillian Murphy is the main character, also delivered a phenomenal performance. He's someone who's been in a lot of Christopher Nolan movies. He was Scarecrow in the Batman trilogy, and he was like that dude in Inception.
Shit, you're right. I didn't even realize that till now. Sorry for interrupting you. You were saying? Hello?
Sorry, yeah, I'm here. Yeah, he was in those movies. Yes.
Are you having to mute yourself because you're getting a whole bunch of reverb or something from my audio or something?
No, it's because I'm on vacation and I'm not the only person in the house right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I got you.
I'm not in my house. I'm actually somewhere else. So kind of because of that. There's background noise that I don't want everyone to hear.
I see. But yeah, you were saying, I did not mean to interrupt you so much.
Yeah, I was talking about how he's been in a lot of Christopher Nolan movies, but never was he the main character before. He was always kind of an important side character or the villain in before. But he's even then a side villain. He wasn't even the main villain in Batman Begins. There was a twist, different main villain, but here he got to basically do the entire movie on his own, and I thought he did a fantastic job. It really felt like he inhabited this character, this historical figure.
Well, I gotta say, good on Cillian Murphy. There was definitely some variety to his acting as well. Scarecrow and Oppenheimer, two entirely different
he lost
characters.
a lot of weight to play the character too, because the real Oppenheimer was pretty skinny. So he like lost weight and became skinny for the part.
I did not remember there being that much of a weight difference between Oppie and Scarecrow.
Oh, there definitely was. Well, you never see Scarecrow without his shirt on, so you wouldn't notice. But you do see Oppenheimer without his shirt on.
Oh yeah,
because he'd be out there banging communist bitches.
He's not Joaquin Phoenix for Arthur Fleck and Joker skinny, but he's still like he still looks like somebody who really slacks the gym and just works a desk clerk job.
Right. Someone who's just kind of absorbed in his work and doesn't really have time to like lift weights.
You know, yeah, and doesn't even eat a whole lot either.
Atoms.
Yeah. Who wants to compare shirtless pics right now? No, I'm joking. I'm joking. Totally joking.
But
what else to say?
Yeah, and he also back to that scene where kind of like Florence Pugh's Genie appears naked on him while they're having that interview. It kind of, I think, like emphasizes his personal guilt or the fact that he thinks that he may have like contributed to her death. That there's some guilt there, which don't know if the real Oppenheimer was that guilty over it, but it's entirely plausible.
Actually, you mentioned that, and that reminds me, I did actually feel some investment with that. I actually did feel for Oppenheimer a bit, and just really the whole situation when he finds out about her death and kind of blames himself a little bit for it.
Yeah. So
this movie was really just about how the weight of the world can really lay on somebody's shoulders.
And that is exactly it. This is a man who changed the world, and whether he did it for good or better is entirely up to the user, to the viewer to determine. I mean,
yeah,
it's obviously a man who was incredibly brilliant, and he made his mark on history. But was it for the better? And I would argue mostly no. And it seems that even he probably would have agreed with me based on some of his later actions.
Yeah, because there's like one pro, I guess, as far as the invention of nukes go, and that is that no country has waged a full-scale war against another sophisticated country ever since. I mean, back then, World War II, you had Germany that was more powerful than America was against the rest of the countries. That definitely
is a good point, because that's probably the reason we're not currently at war with Russia. We're afraid of his nukes, and he's afraid of ours, and thus neither of us directly fight each other. So in that way, it kind of has prevented a new world war from happening. It's just kind of a situation where if fighting does happen, it would be the unthinkable. It'd be so much more devastating than any war of the past.
Yeah. And the most that war that happens is you have sophisticated countries fighting against guerrilla fighters in third world or developing nations.
Right. Mostly we've been fighting proxy wars with each other. Basically, like in Vietnam, of course, that was a proxy war against the Soviets, where they were giving weapons to the Viet Cong that would kill Americans. And then we did the same to them in Afghanistan, and now, of course, all of NATO countries are giving weapons to Ukraine, which are being used against Russia. And Russia, of course, they don't like that. But what can they do? The only alternative is to start a war with us that they wouldn't win, that no one would win. It's like that scene at the end of the war games. Remember, the computer does a simulation of a nuclear war. It says game over, winner, none. Keeps going through every scenario, winner, none, winner,
Wait,
none.
I think I remember watching that 60s or 70s movie or whatever, and the at the end of that simulation, the computer AI intelligence was just all like, "Want to play a game of chess instead?"
Well, actually, it says something better. It says, "Strange game. The only winning move is to not play."
And I remember him making an offer of like chess or some other simpler board game instead.
Yes, exactly. But I love that line. The only winning move is to not play.
Yeah, by the end, the AI was defeated in a battle of wits with the protagonist and the other scientists that help him. Was it Charlton Heston who played as the main lead?
No. It's actually Matthew Broderick. He plays like a brilliant like teenager in it who accidentally hacks into like the nuclear missile systems, and he accidentally thinks he's just playing a game, but the AI that controls the nukes thinks it's a real situation, which risks an accidental launch. That's the plot of the movie.
Wait, it's not a 2015 movie, was it?
No, the movie came out in 1983.
Okay, 1983. Okay, I take back what I said earlier. I said a 60s or 70s movie. I was wrong. It's like a 80s, and the very moment you said
enough though, but that was the point. Winner none is what was the point. It's created a situation where no one can win a war, and both sides know that, and that prevents them from being fought. You could argue that that's led to a more peaceful world. That you could argue that, but at the same time, we all have to live with the fear that one day that they will be used once. And even if individually, every single instance of nuclear war is very unlikely. Like it's very unlikely to happen tomorrow. It's very unlikely to happen the day after. You roll the dice enough time, you give it enough time, very unlikely things do eventually happen.
Yeah.
And it only needs to happen once.
It's like somebody is just rolling like, I don't know, 6 or 10 D20s, the D20s for playing D&D, and you have to roll a 20 on each one of those D20s in order to get somebody to launch a nuke. And every time at least one of them is not rolling a 20, but that day will come when the person rolls 20 on every single one of those D20s.
Correct. That was the point this movie was making, and it probably did so, but almost better. I mean, obviously, it's not the first movie that's gone over the horror that could be brought about by nuclear weapons. I mean, other movies have done so much more horrifyingly than this. But like
your number one favorite movie, Threads.
It's the scariest movie ever, but it's not really the only one. Probably
kidding.
another.
I'm giving you shit.
Another, of course, that terrified me was Barefoot Gen, an animated movie about the bombings of Hiroshima. It goes through how extremely graphic the whole situation was. I highly recommend that one if you can stomach it, even though it's horrifically depressing. But
it animated in detail as to how the outer layer of skin and then the inner layer of skin and then down to the bones of every single person just burned away.
Oh yeah, it's a horrific movie. But this movie, which details kind of nuclear weapons and the specter of them through the point of view of the man who helped create them, really was a new and great perspective in cinema, which I thought was a movie that the world really needed right now. So thanks to you, Christopher Nolan, for making this movie. It was one of the best movies I've seen in a very long time.
Thank you, Christopher Nolan.
And with that, I'm thinking of closing out this stream. Thank you for everyone for joining us.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.